I'm Cynthia, 34F, and I've been trying to reconnect with my son, Sean, 15M, who was raised by my parents. This whole situation is complicated and messy, and I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing anymore. To give you some background, I got pregnant with Sean when I was 19 and in my first year of college. I was dating this guy, Brent, who was a year older than me. We'd been together for about 6 months and thought we were in love. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I came from a conservative family where unmarried pregnancy was considered a huge scandal. I told Brent first, and initially he seemed supportive. We talked about our options, and he even suggested we could get married and raise the baby together. But as the reality of the situation sank in, Brent started to pull away. He'd miss doctor's appointments, avoid talking about the future, and eventually he told me he wasn't ready to be a father. He left town shortly after, and I haven't heard from him since. When I finally gathered the courage to tell my parents, their reaction was even worse than I'd feared. My dad, a respected lawyer in our small town, was furious. He yelled about how I'd ruined my future and brought shame to the family. My mom just cried and kept asking where she'd gone wrong. They gave me an ultimatum. Either give up the baby for adoption or let them raise him. They made it clear that if I chose to keep the baby myself, I'd be on my own. No financial support, no place to live. Nothing. I was scared, overwhelmed, and completely unprepared to be a single mother. So I agreed to let them take care of Sean. I told myself it was for the best. Sean would have a stable home with 2 parents, and I could finish my education. For the next 15 years, my parents acted as Sean's parents. They never hid the fact that I was his biological mother, but they made it clear that they were his real parents. I was allowed to visit occasionally, but always under their supervision. They controlled every aspect of our interactions. I finished college and got a good job in Brenteding. As I became more financially stable and emotionally mature, I started to regret my decision. I tried to be more involved in Sean's life, but my parents always interfered. They would cancel our plans at the last minute or make excuses for why Sean couldn't see me. It was frustrating and heartbreaking. There was one incident when Sean was about 8 that really sticks in my mind. I had promised to take him to the zoo for his birthday. I'd taken the day off work, bought the tickets in advance, and even got him a little stuffed elephant as a gift. But when I showed up at my parents' house to pick him up, they told me Sean was sick and couldn't go. I could hear him playing in the backyard. When I tried to argue, my dad threatened to call the police if I didn't leave. I left in tears, and it was months before they let me see Sean again. As Sean got older, our relationship became more strained. He was polite but distant during our visits. I could tell he was confused about who I was supposed to be in his life. Was I his mom? His sister? Just some lady who visited sometimes? I wanted to explain everything to him, but my parents had made it clear that if I ever tried to undermine their authority, they'd cut me off completely. A few months ago, I finally convinced my parents to let Sean stay with me for the summer. I was ecstatic. I thought this would be our chance to finally bond and build a real mother-son relationship. I spent weeks preparing for his visit, redecorating the spare room, buying his favorite snacks, planning activities we could do together. The first week went okay. Sean was polite but distant. He spent most of his time on his phone or playing video games. I tried to engage him in conversations or suggest activities we could do together, but he always had an excuse not to participate. I told myself to be patient, that it would take time for him to warm up to me. Things started to go downhill in the second week. Sean began leaving messes all over the apartment. He'd leave dirty dishes in the sink, wet towels on the bathroom floor, and his clothes strewn everywhere. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just shrugged and said he'd clean up later, which he never did. I didn't want to be too strict and push him away, so I found myself cleaning up after him more often than not. The real problem started when Sean began leaving appliances and electronics on all the time. He'd leave lights on in empty rooms, the TV blaring when no one was watching, and his gaming console running 24/7. I explained to him that it was wasteful and could be dangerous, but he just laughed it off. He'd say things like, "Relax, it's not like you can't afford the electricity bill," which hurt because it reminded me of all the years I couldn't provide for him. Yesterday, things came to a head. I came home from work to find my smoke alarm blaring. Sean had left my hair straightener on, and it had overheated, scorching my wooden dresser and nearly starting a fire. The smell of burnt wood filled the apartment, and there was a black Brent on my dresser that I'm not sure will ever come out. When I confronted Sean about it, he just rolled his eyes and said, "Chill out, it's not a big deal." His casual attitude about something so serious shocked me. I lost it. I yelled at him about responsibility and safety, telling him he could have burned down the whole building. I brought up all the other instances of his carelessness, asking him if he had any respect for me or my home at all. Sean just stood there with a bored expression, then walked away and slammed his bedroom door. I heard him on the phone shortly after, probably calling my parents to complain about me. Now I'm seriously considering sending Sean back to my parents. I know this was supposed to be our chance to bond, but I'm at my wit's end. Sean seems to have no respect for me or my home, and his carelessness is becoming dangerous. Part of me wonders if I'm just not cut out to be a mother, if I've missed my chance and now it's too late. My best friend thinks I should give Sean another chance, that sending him away will ruin any hope of a relationship. But I'm worried about the safety of my home and my neighbors. What if next time it's not just a scorched dresser, but a full-blown fire? I feel like I'm failing at this whole parenting thing. My parents make it look so easy, and here I am, unable to handle a teenager for even a few weeks. Maybe they were right all along. Maybe I'm just not responsible enough to be a mother. So, Reddit, AITA, for wanting to send my son back to his grandparents after just 3 weeks? Am I giving up too easily? Or am I right to prioritize safety over a relationship that might be beyond repair? Edit. Some additional context since people are asking. Yes, I've tried talking to Sean about his behavior multiple times. He either ignores me or gives half-hearted apologies that lead nowhere. And no, this isn't normal teenage messiness. He's actively leaving things on that could cause fires or floods. As for why I didn't raise Sean myself, it's complicated. My parents basically strong-armed me into letting them take him. They threatened to cut me off completely. No financial support, no place to live, nothing. I was young, scared, and didn't know my rights. By the time I was in a position to fight for custody, Sean was already settled with them, and I didn't want to uproot his life. Update 1. Thank you all for your responses. I've spent the last few days thinking hard about everything you've said. Your comments have given me a lot to reflect on, and I appreciate the different perspectives. First, I want to address something many of you pointed out, that I haven't been much of a mother to Sean. You're right, and that's on me. I let my parents intimidate me into giving up my son, and then I didn't fight hard enough to be part of his life. I have a lot of regrets and a lot to make up for. I had a long talk with Sean last night. I started by apologizing for not being there for him all these years. I explained my side of things, how young and scared I was, how my parents pressured me, and how I've always wanted to be part of his life but didn't know how. Sean listened, which was more than I expected. Then he opened up to me, and what he said broke my heart. He told me he's always felt confused about who I am to him. Am I his mom? His sister? Just some lady who visits sometimes? He said he's angry that I gave him up, even if he understands why I did it. He's also jealous of the kids I babysit, feeling like they get more of my attention than he ever did. He told me about a memory from when he was about 6 years old. It was Christmas, and I had come over to give him a present. He was so excited to see me, but my mom, his grandmother, kept interfering, not letting us have any time alone. Sean said he remembers crying after I left, asking my mom why I couldn't stay longer. Hearing this made me realize how much my absence has affected him over the years. As for the carelessness around my apartment, Sean admitted he was doing it on purpose. Not to be malicious, but to test me. He wanted to see how I'd react, if I'd stick around or if I'd send him away like I did when he was a baby. It was his messed up way of seeing if I really wanted him around. He said he half expected me to give up on him again. We talked for hours. There were tears on both sides. Sean told me about his life with my parents. How strict they are, how they never let him do anything fun. He said he feels like he's always walking on eggshells around them, afraid of disappointing them. He admitted that part of his behavior at my place was him rebelling against all the rules he usually has to follow. Sean also opened up about school. He's been struggling with some subjects, especially math, but he's been afraid to ask for help. My parents always expected him to excel academically, and he feels like a failure when he doesn't understand something. I offered to help him or to find a tutor if he needs one. It wasn't a magical fix-everything moment, but it felt like a start. We've agreed to try and make this work. Sean promised to be more careful around the apartment, and I promised to be more patient and understanding. We're going to start doing things together. He's going to teach me how to play his favorite video game, and I'm going to take him to the art museum I love. I also realized I need to set some boundaries with my parents. They've been calling and texting nonstop, demanding to know what's going on and insisting that Sean come home. I told them that Sean is staying with me for now, and that we need space to work on our relationship. They didn't take it well. My dad threatened to take legal action, but I stood my ground. It was terrifying, but also liberating. We've made a schedule together. Sean will help with chores around the apartment, and in return, I'll give him more freedom than he had at my parents' house. We're also going to have weekly family meetings where we can discuss any issues or concerns openly. It's not going to be easy. We have years of hurt and misunderstanding to work through. But for the first time, I feel like we might have a chance at a real relationship. Sean is giving me a chance to be his mom, and I'm determined not to mess it up this time. I know many of you suggested therapy, and while that might be helpful down the line, right now we're focusing on just spending time together and getting to know each other. We're taking it one day at a time. Thank you all for your advice and for helping me see things from Sean's perspective. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have been going with Sean. We've had our ups and downs, but overall things are improving. Sean has been much more careful around the apartment. He's not perfect. He still forgets to turn off lights sometimes. But he's making an effort. More importantly, he's stopped deliberately leaving things on to test me. We've been spending more time together. As I mentioned before, Sean has been teaching me to play his favorite video game. I'm terrible at it, but he finds my attempts hilarious, and it's nice to hear him laugh. We've also been cooking dinner together a few nights a week. Sean's actually pretty good in the kitchen. Turns out my mom taught him a lot about cooking. Last weekend, we had a bit of a breakthrough. We were at the park, just walking and talking, when Sean suddenly asked me about his father. I've always been honest with Sean about his dad, that he wasn't ready to be a father and chose not to be involved. But this time, Sean wanted more details. I told him everything. How his father and I met in college, how excited we were at first when we found out I was pregnant, and how he gradually pulled away as the reality of parenthood set in. I told Sean about the last time I saw his father, when he told me he couldn't handle being a dad and that he was moving across the country. Sean was quiet for a long time after that. Then he said something that broke my heart. "So neither of you wanted me?" I immediately pulled him into a hug and told him that wasn't true at all. I explained how much I wanted him, how scared I was of messing up, and how I let my parents convince me that giving him up was the best thing for him. We both cried a lot that day, but afterwards Sean seemed more relaxed around me. It's like knowing the full story helped him understand things better. He even shared a bit about how it felt growing up without a dad, always wondering why he wasn't good enough for his father to stick around. We're still working on our relationship, but it feels like we're making progress. Sean has even started calling me Mom occasionally, which makes my heart swell every time. The first time he did it, we were grocery shopping and he called out, "Hey Mom, can we get the cereal?" I nearly burst into tears right there in the store. My parents are still causing problems though. They keep trying to guilt me into sending Sean back, saying he needs stability and routine. I've been firm with them, but it's causing a lot of tension. Sean overheard one of our arguments and got really upset. He told me he feels like he's being fought over like a priest. I assured him that's not the case, but I can see how it's affecting him. We had a scary moment last week when my dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. He demanded to see Sean and tried to convince him to come home. Sean stood his ground and told my dad he wanted to stay with me. I was so proud of him for standing up for himself, but I could see how much the confrontation upset him. For now, we're taking it one day at a time. Sean and I are both learning how to be mother and son. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. We're starting to build our own traditions. Sunday morning pancakes, movie nights on Fridays. It's these little moments that make me feel like we're becoming a real family. Update 3. It's been 6 months since Sean came to stay with me and a lot has changed. Sean is still living with me, and we've settled into a pretty good routine. He's enrolled in the local high school and seems to be adjusting well. He's even made a few friends, which is great to see. Our relationship has its ups and downs, but overall it's much stronger than it was. We still have our movie nights and cooking sessions. Sean has also started teaching me how to skateboard. I'm absolutely terrible at it, but he finds it hilarious. The other day, I fell and scraped my knee pretty badly. Instead of laughing, Sean helped me up and got the first aid kit. It was a small moment, but it showed how much our relationship has grown. The biggest challenge we've faced recently is dealing with my parents. They've escalated their attempts to get Sean back, even threatening legal action. It's been stressful for both of us, but it's also brought us closer together. Sean told me he wants to stay with me, which meant the world to hear. We've consulted with a lawyer who assured us that my parents don't have a legal leg to stand on. They're Sean's legal guardians, but not his adoptive parents. And at 15, Sean has a say in where he lives. It's a relief, but the whole situation has been emotionally draining. Despite the stress with my parents, Sean has been doing really well. His grades are good, and he's even joined the school's art club. He showed me some of his drawings the other day, and I was blown away by how talented he is. He's been working on a series of portraits. One of them was of me. It wasn't perfect, but seeing how he sees me as his mom brought tears to my eyes. We still have our challenges. Sean can be moody and distant sometimes, and I'm still learning how to parent a teenager. But we're figuring it out together. The other day, Sean told me he's glad he came to live with me, even if it was hard at first. It wasn't a big emotional moment. He said it casually while we were doing dishes, but it meant everything to me. Last week, we had a bit of a setback. Sean's birthday was coming up, and my parents insisted on throwing him a party at their house. Sean didn't want to go, but I encouraged him to give it a chance. I thought it might help smooth things over. The party itself was tense. My parents acted like everything was normal, but Sean was clearly uncomfortable. Things came to a head when my dad made a speech about how proud he was of his son. Sean stood up, told them he wasn't their son, and stormed out. I found him sitting on the curb outside, crying. On the drive home, Sean opened up about how suffocated he felt living with my parents, always trying to live up to their expectations. He said he felt like he could finally be himself with me. It was a tough moment, but also a turning point in our relationship. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm hopeful about our future. For the first time, I feel like I'm truly Sean's mom, and he's my son. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. We're building something real here, something that's ours. As for my parents, I'm learning to set boundaries. It's hard, and I still struggle with guilt sometimes, but I know it's necessary for Sean's well-being and for our relationship. We're not cutting them out completely, but we're defining our own family unit now. I'm grateful for this second chance with Sean. Every day brings new challenges, but also new joys. Watching him grow, helping him with homework, cheering him on at his first art show, these are the moments I dreamed of when he was born. It may have taken 15 years, but we're finally getting to be mother and son. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this journey. It's been tough, but also incredibly rewarding. I'll keep you updated if anything major happens, but for now, we're just taking it one day at a time, building our life together.